The first race of RCI TV about ready to kick off here in just about 8 more minutes. We'll start that qualifying session. Friday Sprint Championship is back, and the field is massive. Looking at George Boothby for the Yas Heat team at the moment, and if you look to the left at the leaderboard, you'll see Malinowski and Honzik, also Yas Heat drivers, right at the top of the field. They're looking to take the triple podium, is the Yas Heat here at the first race of Spa. And it's going to be a blast to watch. 3 different cars, Merc, McLaren, BMW for them. And of course, we have Foch, Houle, Deanna, Neto. Everybody is here today for this Friday championship. It is a real who's who of RCI. And speaking of who's who, joining you from the comms box for this season will be everybody's favorite resident Americans and yelling boys, Mike Jones and Jesse Lee. And we were just apologizing to our broadcaster, Ryan, just before we started, weren't we, Jesse?
Yeah, we sure were. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to not only a new season of GT3 racing here on Friday night, but a new year indeed as well. New rules in a lot of the categories that we'll talk about eventually. There's a new pitting requirement for, but in the end, it is a 1-hour race. It's going to be just about all we can fit in a 1-hour race, and we were apologizing to Mr. Ryan Rai Gill, who is behind the cameras today. He is filling in for Stewie, who has been pulled away on other business today. But Mike, it's never easy dealing with the two of us at the same time.
It is not, but it's something that we will have for the next about 7 weeks here for the Friday Championship. And it's been a little while since we've done an entire championship together, Jesse, and I am quite looking forward to it. And of course, as you said, Stewie should be joining us starting next week, as he's been a little busy with the website. As anybody out there that might know, we did finally officially launch our 2.0 website yesterday, and that is now live, and stuff to do for it still. Stewie's got a lot of work to do over the weekend, and he's been keeping pretty busy, but hopefully he'll get a little bit of rest next week and then start his stream. And then, of course, we have the Night Owl Championship starts tomorrow as well. And Ryan, is the Monday Championship this coming week or next week? This Monday, yeah. So Euro Masters as well. Euro Masters Season 2 will start on Monday as well. So 3 racing.
You could have just asked me that, Mike Jones. I mean,
you could have, but Ryan was here. He's the admin. I was like, hey, Ryan, let's ask Ryan.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's right. Jesse's racing.
I had forgotten, and we're going to get to that in a minute, but I had forgotten that Ryan is the race admin for that series. So anything that goes wrong for me in that series, I'm going to blame it on Ryan Rai Gill. But it is a thing. I have been getting some racing done. We've been doing a lot of stuff on the back end at RCI TV, the new website sign-up process, all of this stuff, pre-queue, all these things that we're going to talk about at some point. There's a big video we put out. Oh, I didn't do anything, but Mike Jones and Ryan Gill did, and it highlights all the new changes and all the stuff that is going on for the brand new year, and a lot of those things taking place has kept everybody here behind the scenes incredibly busy. But while they've been busy doing that, I've been busy racing.
Speaking of New Year weirdness, this is not George Booth, which you're looking at. This is Martin Grady in a McLaren 720S, which I do know he actually put out a vote to his YouTube followers over on his channel to pick a new car for the year. So the man who started ACC last year in the Bentley, now changing up the cars, and he's going to be driving in that 720 for at least for the next foreseeable future here, Jesse. And I find that very interesting. I'm very curious to see how he handles it. You could not pick 2 different cars unless you took the Porsche than the 720 and the Bentley. So I'm very curious to see how he handles this thing. He's about a second off the top of the pace at the moment, which is about where we are used to seeing him for qualifying hot lap pace throughout the the past couple seasons in the Bentley. So far on hot lap pace, at least, it's looking about even. And of course, the top of the grid with the different cars up here. The 720 isn't necessarily the strongest car at Spa. It's quick, but it's not the quickest here. But a lot of the quickest drivers are still running this car, such as Boothby. I was not sure if we would see the Yassit team all in Porsches, but I'm glad to see that they have all taken different ones. Speaking of Porsches, Berrier just put himself into the top 5 of practice. He's one of the couple Porsches that are on the grid this season, and kind of glad to see a nice mix of cars and not just flooded with BMWs.
Yes, indeed. It's a new year, which means that there inevitably are always going to be new teams, new faces, old faces at new places, and different strategies. And you talked about Yassit just a moment ago about how they've all come here in different cars. What that tells me as a driver is they're looking for something. They're trying things out. They're trying it. What better place to try it out than in an actual series, a championship where points matter, where you've got a lot of the big names involved as well. All that does is help solidify your findings. You can go and you can run 100 laps by yourself and get all the data you want, but before you enter that car in an actual race against people that can beat you, that have genuine talent of their own, you don't really know too much about the feasibility of a car in a racing situation. So bringing 3 cars here tells me Yassit are looking for something for 2022. Don't know what that is exactly, but if I had to guess, Jardier's in the BMW. They could be looking to see how the other cars week in and week out stack up against the BMW, thinking about bigger races down the line.
They could, yeah. I mean, there's been a big conversation recently, of course, about that BMW M4. James Parker had a lot of thoughts on it in our World Tour channel. Just a couple days ago, we had a big talk about it, talking about how there's definitely something that seems to be a little wrong about that car. And I think Eris, actually, I saw put out a note this morning saying something about the aerodynamics, kind of confirming the suspicions a little bit. And obviously, he didn't go too much into detail of it, but they are trying to actively work on that and fix it at the moment. Due to the issues with that car. Now Spa, not necessarily one of those that it's overly quick at, but we might see it next week with a slight bop on it if we have if the patch has not been out yet for Eris to do what he needs to do to fix it. But yeah, it could be something where this BMW is kind of being a test bed for them because they want to see how it handles before and after the patch. Like, is it worth it to run this BMW after the patch? Because is it still very quick? All the data from the driver says that it's still a very comfortable car, and I think that no matter the changes they make to the aero or not, I still think it's probably likely going to be a comfortable car. But I'm very curious to see how quick it is after that patch comes out, Jesse, because it's going to be huge differences once that hits, not just for the Friday championship, but all championships.
Yeah, and all that does is serve as extra information. If it does come out and maybe the BMW isn't quite as good, then Yassit, for instance, will be among the first to have that data. We were looking at Tinko van der Velde a moment ago. He was the champion from the last Friday season in 2021. He is back this year, but in a new team. He's driving for Williams now, the esports team. So all of his great racing in 2021, including a couple or at least one RCI championship, has led him to his new team as well. He's not the only one, of course, as there's several of those stories about. We'll try to bring them to you as we discover them ourselves. Christmas was a month or so ago, but it's almost like Christmas getting back to work, isn't it, Mike? As time expires here in practice, we get back into the booth. We see all the shiny new cars. We see the new teams, the different people on the different teams. It's all very exciting for us as well.
It is, yeah, and it qualifying is starting here. It looks like that Savalainen is going to be our first car out of the pit lane, and he is going to get the first lap of RCI TV's actual qualifying done here in the 2022 season. As you were saying, Tinko, new car, new team. He, of course, won last season in the McLaren 720S. Now he's out here in the Mercedes, as of course that is Williams Esports general car of choice. So one of his fellow Mercedes, Savalainen, going to be the first one out. And once Ryan gets back over to live pictures, we will be able to see him. And of course, next week, Jesse, even more shiny. Next week we might be the week after, have our custom livery system working, and we will get even shinier looking cars out here on the grid, which is a pretty exciting concept to have. It just requires Bart to go in and of course do all the approvals for those for the next week or the week after, whenever we get that going. But here is Savalainen in his traditional ****, because he's very confused face, I guess, while he's driving around the track. Number 100 Mercedes AMG. I get so much amusement. Like it's not even that funny. The team name isn't that funny. It really is not. But I get so much amusement. I'm sorry.
Mike Jones amusing himself. 8.5 minutes qualifying. You're not going to get a ton of laps around Spa-Francorchamps. I mean, we didn't really talk about where we were. We are at Spa, but what can you say about Spa that hasn't already been said? Well, the one thing is the reconfiguration. We don't have that here today. We're operating under the previous configuration of the racetrack, and that will do us just nicely. Savalainen will be coming to the line to start his very first quick lap, the very first quick lap of 2022 for the Friday Championship. This should be a nice banker lap, but you can't afford to invalidate too many. If you invalidate 2 or 3 laps, that's your qualifying done, Mike.
Yeah, here at Spa, of course, we're looking at it roughly on the higher end of 2:20 lap time, and when you only got 10 minutes and an out lap to do, you don't have much to do. Of course, Savalainen put himself in that first pit box, and that gets him the jump on everybody else as he's coming through Eau Rouge and Raidillon for the first time, jumping over all of those curbs that he can. That Merc will eat those curbs, and then out onto the Camel Straight as he approaches turn 7. On his first hot lap, and it'll be interesting to see how these guys can actually do in the qualifying session. Of course, the practice session, not everybody's out there running full hot laps, really showing how quick they can be. And then 3 laps to go here. These are the pro drivers, right? The pro drivers are here to make sure that they can put those hot laps on demand. But will the pressure get to them is the question, and it's something that we're going to see out of Savalainen here pretty soon, along with the big old train of cars behind him. Of course, the track map isn't up at the moment on the screen, but it is just nose to tail all the way down the Camel Straight and Lake Home at the moment as he's coming in through Pouan and into partway through Sector 2 of the track. About a minute left on the lap, and we can start seeing that leaderboard, Jesse, but qualifying position, I think, here is going to be huge tonight, if only because of the massive competitiveness that this field is going to bring.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many cars here as well. I think we've got 34, 35 cars on the grid. We could have expected 37 in the pro field. We haven't really mentioned that, but this is the top of the top in ACC GT3 racing. This is the pro field, and realistically, 34 of them, you're never going to go 34th to 1st unless you're Jardier. So I don't know if that's a realistic expectation that anyone could have here. Qualifying is an absolute premium. Despite the track size, it's not the widest or the easiest track to get around somebody on. What will Savalainen's first lap time be? It's going to be a 2:18.402, immediately beat by Wolf Gruber and then Malinowski, and then finally Jardier, a 2:16.745 in the number 39 BMW, nearly 1.5 tenths faster than Malinowski. Houle comes in third, but then gets beat by Nito in the 43. Then Valentin Berrier now third in the 72 Porsche.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to see these guys immediately dip down to those high 16s, and that's exactly what you expect to see drop down to those 16s as Honzik and Malinowski. Of course, George Boothby, I'm looking for him. He has not actually set a valid lap yet, so he must have invalidated his first lap. So only 2 of the 3 Yassit members up on the podium at the moment, and we just saw one of the McLarens, the 119 McLaren, actually put down one hell of a banker lap there, only 100th off the tail end of Honzik. So the 119 there is looking pretty strong here in the qualifying session as well. This is Valentin Berrier that we're on with at the moment for the Jardier community team. He's coming around Lake Como for the moment, and he is currently down on his lap by about a second, so he must have invalidated at some point. Not necessarily had the best Eau Rouge and Radion. Jardier is a 10th and a half up, though, as is Malinowski, and just a lot of the field still about a 10th up. But you know, the thing is, Jesse, we're starting this qualifying with all of the grip out on the track at DIS optimum as soon as we started, which means that these guys are you know, able to just drop down hot laps immediately. It's not your last lap that's necessarily going to be your fastest. It could be the first one. And as Ryan just said in our ears, Jardier actually invalidated the lap that he's on at the moment. So P2 in that 119 is looking nice and strong for a potential P1 here on his lap, as he he invalidated as well. Actually, he's coming up red. So he is about 3/10 up though. So that 118 is looking quick, Jesse. He came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was a pretty quick lap indeed. How quick is this field? Christoph Verstappen in the 747 Bentley is 22nd place. That's absolutely incredible that Verstappen down to 23rd now, as Malinowski goes quickest of all, a 16.522, gets beat by George Boothby, a 16.227, 3/10 quicker than Malinowski, as Boothby immediately comes back down into the pit lane. If he wants to do another lap, he's going to have to go back out very quickly, though I'm not sure how interesting
right now.
He will be. Wow, I wouldn't have called that, but a little bit of insurance for Boothby, perhaps. A 16.227, that's pretty fast.
That's not pretty fast. That is blazing quick and exactly what we expect out of George Boothby. We've talked a little bit about this recently, how we expect, you know, Boothby to be likely one of the fastest drivers in ACC right now overall, and he's in a car that he's back to being comfortable with. Obviously, he's been driving that Porsche for a little while, and he's been damn quick in that thing, but now that he's in the 720 again, this was his original car that he drove, and I would not be surprised to see him really take to this season and be the man to beat throughout the next 7 weeks. But yeah, he is going to try one more hot lap as he is out of the pit, and it looks like that the 993 did tap the wall a little bit. He is out of the pit lane again, and he may make it around for another lap, but it will be very tight on whether he can do that or not. Jardier still out on a lap. He's about a 10th up at the moment, not enough to come up to the top end of the field with Boothby, but he will have one more lap as well. And of course, we're watching some of the mid-pack Ferraris. That was the 427 that we were watching. They were up on their lap a little bit. And here is our second BMW, the BMW at the top that is not Jardier, the number 27 for Lateo. And he's 8/10 off the leader. And that's really only 8/10 because George Boothby blew everybody out of the water. Look at that field, though. Pretty much everybody besides for Boothby and Malinowski are pretty dang close to each other. You pick up a 10th, you might pick up 6 positions.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is more like one of the short tracks. This is what you would expect to see at maybe a Laguna Seca, not a Spa-Francorchamps, but there you have it. You get so many cars, this can happen as Houle goes back to 4th place. An improvement for him there on that lap, half a second off of pole, but definitely a row improvement for the 58. And now the 27 BMW trying to get a better lap time as well. Milton still Vasson. Haven't talked about the MSVR driver yet. Where is he going to come into, gaining one position that time by that 17.437. Good enough for 16th place. Christoph Verstappen struggling here, Mike.
Yeah, a little bit in his Bentley. He is the lone Bentley out on the field today. He might be the lone Bentley in Split 1 overall, if I'm not mistaken, with the NSN Racing Team 747. He is up on his lap at least about a half a second, so that should pick him up to maybe roughly around P20. once he crosses the line, as long as he can keep it together in the chicane here. And we're going to find out momentarily as qualifying does tick over. That wait time up at the top is now saying, hey, you are on your final lap. Here's Verstappen across the line, and he is going to jump quite a few positions up to P19. So he'll be, I think, reasonably happy with that overall. And I'll point out there is one more MSVR driver here as well, Jessley, not just Milton Steel Vaston Huel, also a driver for MSVR. So he is the leading MSVR driver for the moment. And I think that the MSVR team can also be relatively happy with that, to see 2 drivers in the top 20. But of course, Yassi dominating the podium here in qualifying at the moment. I don't think anybody's going to touch them. However, what I'm impressed of, Mr. Lee, look at P9, Martin Grady, all the way up there, only 0.8 off the leader. I'm proud of him.
Yeah, Tidge, you just sounded like a proud father there for some reason. It was
I know,
very
right?
off-putting for a second, but we just watching the final cars finish up their qualifying. It's a long old track. It does take several minutes to get back around. And you're talking about Martin Grady, the man they call Tidge. He has been remarkable since he's joined us here at ACC. He's improved every single season. He's a RCI race winner as well, and a well-deserved one at that. And
He was so proud of that.
Probably,
it was so cool.
this is probably the stiffest competition in RCI anyway that he's dealt with this many pros, and to put it inside the top 10 is quite impressive indeed. Wolf Gruber in the 41 does 19th on his final lap. Samir Foch in 13th, the Fiat OP Ferrari. Where will this land him? It could be a decent improvement, and is. Goes up to 9th place, knocks Grady down to 10th with his final lap. A nice improvement for Foch there as qualifying ends.
Yeah, qualifying does end, so that puts Boothby on pole. Malinowski will be on his left side. Jardier behind him, and Huel behind Malinowski for the first 2 rows of this. So, you know, other than Boothby, of course, basically just dominating this session, which again is, it's unsurprising at this point. It's Yas Heat for one. Yeah, the Yas Heat drivers, obviously all 3 of them at the top of the grid, but Boothby at the top of the top. And it's almost I hate to say this, and I hope this gets back to Boothby, and he knows the one he's that I'm the one who said it. I can pronounce words today. It's almost getting a little boring, George. Let somebody else have a turn, but he's just too damn quick. He don't care.
No, George. That's not how George Boothby works. George Boothby wants to be in all the races. He wants to win all the races, and he has a shot just by being in the field. Reading your chat messages as always. It is so nice to be back with all of you. We hope that whatever you did for your holiday break, it was enjoyable and relaxing, and it's just great to be here. British GT fan said earlier that they fractured their ankle and have been watching some of the RCI races. That's a fantastic way to spend some of your time watching motorsport when there is none other. We do appreciate you watching some of the back catalog as it would have been. There are some nuggets of pure comedy in there, as well as some absolutely heroic racing by some of the drivers. Interesting question, or interesting thing about Matthias Jensen has posed here. Why is Jardier not streaming? Well, that's an interesting question. Could that be stealth mode enabled for Jardier today, Mike? Is there a tactical reason why he might not be streaming?
Could be. Maybe he's trying to hide it from the other Yas-Heat drivers. I was just commenting on how I very much usually have all streams open because I want to watch. I want to see how everybody's tire pressures are doing. You know, all that data that you do get in real life racing. You know, from race control. You know, you get a lot of the data as we are looking down the grid here as they're getting their last setup tweaks in. You know, I like to spy on them. I like to see what Jardier is doing. I like to see what Boothby's doing. I like to see how they're acting. I like to see their attitudes. How happy you looking? Are you looking serious? You know. But unfortunately with the move, it's a little bit more difficult for me to pull up the stream, so I'm a little disappointed about that. So I might flip through them a little bit on my phone to keep an eye on them, but I wonder if Jardier is trying to hide it from us.
That's very interesting. I wonder if maybe it's something to do with that. Maybe it's not his teammates he's worried about. Maybe it's some of the other drivers. Because again, if he is here, if Yazid here is extracting data for future purposes, obviously with the new BMW, etc., he could be trying to mask some of that data, keep it inside the organization as well. It's all a very interesting possibility, as we will have how many cars? 34, I believe it is on the grid today. And that is it's 35 cars at the finale of qualifying, which means that we gained one right before the end of qualifying. And oh my, it is a large grid. Savalainen in the 100 all the way near the back.
Yeah, he did not have the best of qualifying. Other people didn't have the best of qualifying. MSVR Simon Keeble, also kind of near the back of the grid. He ended up qualifying back in P29. MSVR is going to have a really nice mid-pack fight, I think. Milton and Keeble being there. As well as Kellaway, if I'm not mistaken, is an MSVR driver. And of course, Huell up at the front. That's his blue McLaren there, the number 58. He'll be fighting for that podium if he can. Now, the question being, will Mr. Boothby get the sprint off the start, and are we going to see him walk away like he so tends to be, or will the other Yazid drivers keep him humble through the race? And obviously we hope for some close racing, but I think Boothby will have other ideas for that, and we'll have to see how that shakes out. Just about ready to start the formation lap. Everybody just about done with their final setup tweaks. We got about 10 seconds so they can fire the cars up, start getting them warmed up, and get going here along the very, very, very long formation lap. It always feels like whenever we do one here. It is a long formation lap as it is, but it's a nice little time. Warm up the tires for the first race of the year. And Jesse, I'm gonna have to ask the question, because I feel like this is one of those situations where this question needs to be asked. Who you got?
Oh.
Don't know.
You didn't ask me anything.
Yeah, my microphone was cut out. Sorry, I said, who you got?
Did you, I don't know what's going on. I think he's trying to prank me. Allow me to just say.
Who you got?
Oh, that's a dirty question. I want to say George Boothby.
I say Ryan heard me.
Oh yeah, I don't know why. I couldn't hear him. I don't know what was going on. I'm starting to think Ryan Gill was playing a prank on me there. I want to pick Boothby, but you know who I am going to pick? I'm going to pick Jardier, because I've seen him do it before in these races where he's trailed George Boothby all day long, and on the final lap, literally the final lap, has made a move to win the race. I think Jardier somehow pulls this off from sheer will, determination, and a little bit of strategy.
And of course, strategy for the day, which we haven't fully talked about yet. I know Jesse mentioned a little different pit rules this time around. That is not just 1 liter of fuel that you have to put in. It is a fixed fuel pit time, which means 25 seconds in the box minimum. I'm very curious to see if a lot of the drivers will take that extra 5 seconds and also throw on some tires or not, and really burn off their tires as quickly as they can pitting mid-race. It'd be really interesting to see, do they think that 5 minutes matter, or that 5 seconds rather, matters that much? A lot of the cars honestly don't feel a ton different on slightly worn tires through a stint. A lot of these drivers can still put down some of their fastest laps on warm tires, so 5 seconds might make a lot of difference for them. Whereas other people, especially near the top of the grid, if they slide around a little bit and get some get some flat spots, then maybe they will want to change tires. But everybody is, of course, going to be on a half fuel load through this season in comparison to the full 100 to 110 liters that they would normally take. And I think it's going to be very interesting. I'm gonna throw you a bit of a curveball here, Jesse Lee, and I think that Malinowski is looking pretty dang good in that Mercedes.
Well, I appreciate both of us resisting the urge to pick George Boothby in this case, but George knows how to win these races almost better than anybody else. Was just reading some chat before we go. Just reading the chat.
Ryan goes for Grady.
Here. yeah. Ryan Gill, our broadcaster, has decided that the king of the plebs, Martin Tidge Grady, is going to win this race from 10th place. It's not unheard of for a car inside the top 10 to win this race, and it could very well be with the new pit rules here. One pit stop, as Mike Jones said, you have to complete that pit stop. You have to be stopped in the box for 25 seconds, regardless of what work you have done to the car. Whatever work you have done in those 25 seconds, completely up to you. But you have to be stopped in the box 25 seconds. And that is brand new for 2022 here on RCI. And we're going to see it live in the very first race of the year. 1 hour set up here. And, well, your guess is as good as mine, Mike Jones, as we end up taking the chicane for the first and the last time at pace car speed. Before we get going, you got to watch out. Rouge and Radion this time through. Could it be a melee? Mike Jones, take it away.
Oh, it's very much going to be a melee here. They're coming around the chicane, the final corner. That Mercedes of Malinowski poking his nose out there. He wants to get. He wants to see that clean air. He wants to see above George Boothby. He wants to get that jump off the start, and he is going to look for every opportunity to do so. But Boothby, as they're doing, 31 miles an hour, 50 kph, and then speeding slightly back up as the field stacks up, coming around La Source, and of course
That's
the start line here at Spa. It's a lot of cars. Of course, the start line here at Spa is after La Source, just before Rouge and Radion. So coming through turn one, everybody's going to stack up one more time. George Boothby gets his nose out ahead of Malinowski, right where he should be. Honzik and Huell going to be following them up with Krakis and Berrier out behind them. We've got 3 McLarens in the top 6. There's the start line just ahead of them. They're going to take the green here in just a moment, and we are racing here. RCI TV's first stream of the year. George Boothby, Malinowski side by side. They're all side by side coming through Eau Rouge. George does get the nose out in front, though. Malinowski taps the brakes, gets back behind him, and watching Honzik and Huell go side by side down the Camel Straight for the first time. A great run from, I believe that's Deanna in the background in the 11, who has put his nose up a couple positions near the top and coming in to Lacombs for the first time. Everybody still side by side besides for Boothby and Malinowski. Oh, there's the touch. The BMW goes off, and that's going to be Honzik that loses multiple positions due to contact there in the background. We'll catch up with that here in just a moment, but George Boothby and Malinowski making a great breakaway here, and Jesse, you may have cursed Honzik a little bit here as he has just lost a massive amount of positions, and he is going to now have to play catch up as he goes off and taps the wall in the combs.
Well, speaking of accidents, there's been a massive accident at the 199 and the 211. And many other cars involved, rather, besides after Radion on the Kimmel Straight. They had gotten to the kink in the Kimmel Straight, and it looked like the track was blocked momentarily. Several cars involved. The 211 has reset to the pit lane. Everybody else has carried on. Of course, we saw Jardier go off hard, contact into the wall there, and a drive-through penalty for Sizek in the 427 Ferrari. That's for starting out of position. Do keep in mind this race, as per usual on Friday, is live stewarded and will continue to be throughout the season. So the live stewards very much on it. They're going to have to first get through that Kimmel Straight incident Mike. They're going to have to figure out what exactly happened there and then move on to the Jardier incident, what exactly went on with that one. But either way, several cars involved. Oh, more cars off. Several in the wall. Hool is off. Malinowski's off into the grass there, into the final chicane. What on earth happened?
I don't know. I know that Ryan will be searching for the replay here in just a moment. But yeah, Huell and Malinowski off in the final chicane. Likely some sort of contact happening there between them. It does mean the Jardier picks up a couple positions again. Of course, we did see that damage on the back end as he was coming into the final chicane, turn 19 for the first time. But, you know, it looks like he hasn't lost quite as many positions as I initially expected, at least. He dropped down to 8th, and there is one of his Yasi team members now falling down the order. They have fallen almost all the way down, have Huell and Malinowski 18th and 21st as they rejoin the track. So massive loss for them. And that just means that George Boothby now with a 2.6 second gap up at the front is just going to have a massive jump there, as Huell actually catching a little bit more contact with one of the BMWs back in the field as he comes into the turn 7 for the second time. So more contact there for Huell. Not sure if it's because he's getting frustrated or if, you know, he's just a little bit of contact there. But I mean, I'd be frustrated if I started P4 in this field and then got yeeted down all the way down to P20. And of course, we'll have to see what happened with it. Here is a replay. Let's find out what happened. Huell coming in behind him. Malinowski, yeah, just a little bit of a tap there. So it kind of looks like, unfortunately, that it might have just been Huell braking just a touch late. Perhaps he thought Malinowski was going to accelerate a little quicker, and he didn't. So Malinowski, the victim there, it looks like. Of course, the stewards will have a better look at it and see what happened, but that's what it looks like to me, and that is unfortunate for Huell. Might receive him a penalty on top of the position loss.
Malinowski will be understandably furious about that. I would be as well in that case. That was a bit of a miscalculation from behind and got taken out for their troubles. Well, Jardier has been fluctuating in between 8th and 6th place. He's continuing to stick in there. Now, you can't understate, even if the 39 doesn't have a great day today, this is a championship. It's not a one-off race, so today is not the end-all, be-all. And it's very important that you get all the positions and all the spots you can. Him staying inside the top 10 cannot be understated at this point. And George Boothby all alone up front, but not the fastest car on the racetrack. That goes to second place Caracas in the 119 McLaren. Wouldn't have called that. 3 seconds behind Boothby. Question is, can he get there?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough, right? Can he keep that consistent through here is going to be the question. Boothby has not really set a great lap as he invalidated the last one, which is why he does not have the fast lap of the race. So he invalidated that lap. It was a 2:17.0, so he's actually 5/10 quicker than the 119 out on the track. He just invalidated it, and it did not count for fastest. So I don't think he's going to catch him, Jesse Lee. I think Caracas has just got no chance to catch Boothby on normal pace at the moment. As we're watching, yeah, a little bit of contact there. This is Malinowski trying to make his way back up the field, which he has made up a couple of positions. Now fighting with the 41, no, sorry, that's the 444 of Ostrauch as they come through the Bruxelles and out into Puan. And no name there, but not quite able to slide on past him for the moment. Malinowski got a lot of work to do, but he needs to be patient. If he does cause contact, it's just going to mean penalties will come his way, much like, Jesse Lee, the penalty of the 814. Did you see if that was a stewarding inquiry penalty there? Because I didn't see anything.
No, if it is, it hasn't come through to us, so I'm going to assume that is a start infraction married to an additional penalty that has upgraded that to a very large stop and go, because nothing has come through at this particular juncture.
So did you catch Ryan? Ryan said what happened is he actually cut Radion almost completely, and that upgraded the drive-through.
Yes, indeed. So that does explain that. It's very uncommon. There's not a whole lot of places you can do that in ACC, but Spa-Francorchamps is a place where that penalty can come into play. That's a compound penalty assessed by ACC and not the RCI stewards in this case. That's a rarity. I think I've only ever seen that one other time.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often. Usually it's when you get track cuts, and then also come in and don't serve the drive-through, but come in for your pit stop and speed in the pit lane. I think it's the only other time I've seen it, and that's such a rare occasion. You know, and as Ryan is saying, he may have cut Radion to avoid an accident, which is just unfortunate for him. But, you know, in the end, that is kind of part of what goes on. You need to make sure that you slow down. You know, if you do have to cut it, there was that very controversial penalty and situation in Night Owl a few seasons ago at Spa, where the I think it was P2 came up Radion and had to avoid a car and go way off a track. And, you know, the stewards were saying, well, I mean, should we have given him a penalty? Should we not have? Blah, 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 blah. And, you know, it's one of those situations where it's just so difficult to, well, we have to penalize somebody because they really did gain an advantage here, but also, you know, they were doing it because they were avoiding someone else, and it's why stewarding is such a gray area, and I don't envy the stewards in those situations. But Deanna here, Ryan pointing out, up in P5, car number 11 in his McLaren. He won the last Monday championship, if I'm not mistaken, according to Ryan. So they're going to be up here fighting for the top of the grid. Not the last championship, Ryan's clarifying now, but he has won one of our Monday championships at some point. So might also be a competitor at the top of the field here. So Deanna in his number 11 up here in P5, right on the back of Foch, trying to get past that 488. George Boothby up at the front, though. He has indeed taken that purple lap, Jesse Lee, 3/10 ahead of the next victim, which is Caracas. And he is just walking away with that without the competition of his Yasi teammates being upside of him here. Deanna, though, going for a move out of the chicane. Ooh, he's going to hook it, too. He will stay there through the back half of the chicane. Who's going to get the run off the corner is the question. As I'm actually watching Wachna in the background, he ran off the track in the background. He lost a couple positions. Hanzik picking one up, now up into P6, and Foch is able to shake the McLaren for the moment and stay out ahead of P4. But positions changing everywhere. Small mistake from the 16 cost him a position at Jardier.
Credit to Samir Foch, too. He started 9th in this race. He's up 5 positions into 4th. Currently under attack from Diana, who, oh my goodness, gets a little bit loose, and Rouge gathers it back up, and it's all good.
In the background there, by the way, that's Jardier and Wachna side by side all the way up through Rouge and Radion that you can see there in the background.
Yes, indeed. They're getting after each other. A very spirited racing between the two. And looks like Wachna is actually going to be able to get that spot back away from Jardier. And you see behind them, that's Vander Velde, Barrier, Neto, and Grady all in a line right behind this group. It's a non-stop sort of parade as they all are lined up for what is essentially the 6th place position.
Yeah, Grady. I pulled up his stream on my phone and kind of checking out him a little bit. And he is he's in good spirits. He's smiling. He's laughing. He's having a good time. He's lost one position since the start, obviously, but I think he's happy to be fighting at the tail end of this pack at the moment, just waiting for those mistakes to happen. So I would not be surprised to see Grady, you know, stick with it and potentially pick up a couple positions here through this battle, as this is just a huge pack of cars here 10 minutes into the race. We probably won't see pits for about another 15 to 20 minutes before these guys are going to look into the pit lane, and we're going to find out what sort of strategy they will be on, as you know, the rest of the time is going to be spent out here on the track. Of course, with 35 cars out on the track, you can look at that track map to your left, Jesse. They're all coming down the back straight at the moment. Almost every single one of them, besides for George Boothby. But that said, Wachna still holding the front end of this pack. Yaroslav Hanzik is sticking with him there at the very least, but there is Mercedes and Barrier and Ryan giving us a replay what actually happened here. So this was Barrier. Just got a little loose, it looks like, maybe coming out of the chicane. Managed to hold on to that car, though, so he's not going to lose any time. in that position is all. And now switch back to Tinko Vandervelde, of course, the new Williams Esports driver in the middle of this pack as well. He's the third one in the pack. Currently looking at the back of Jardier's BMW M4. And the 66 Tinko Vandervelde doing a pretty good job so far. He's dancing behind Jardier. Wants to get in those mirrors, make sure he knows he's there, and if he makes a mistake with that damaged car, that he will be there and ready to pounce. So the problem is, when you got a man like Valentin Barrier behind you in a Porsche, you have to make sure that you're not showing too much aggression, or you might lose it yourself, Jesse.
Well, there's a couple of things too about this, is that if you are Jardier and you are defending from Tinko and Tinko gets a run and it doesn't come off, Barrier could get by Tinko, and that would mean Wajna would continue to get away from Jardier. It's an accordion effect. It's a ripple effect, if you will. And one false move can see you going from potentially gaining a spot to losing several, especially in this kind of conga line. We've seen that over and over the years, of one move leading to you losing spots instead of gaining spots. It's the most frustrating and sort of feeling in the world right there, as Barrier gets a little bit loose on the curb, and that allowed Neto in the 43 to get a little bit closer, a little bit more of an advantage down the straightaway in the slipstream, but to no avail here, as strangely enough, that Porsche being very formidable in a straight line here.
Yeah, he must be running as little wing as possible in that Porsche, I'm sure. Plus, he does have the slipstream. You are in the middle of a pack here. Ooh, someone diving out of the pit lane. That's Jardier going to go ahead and dive into the pit lane. That's an interesting strategy here. I wonder if he's coming in realizing that he's got that damage and maybe wants to spend a few seconds in the box repairing that damage. So very well could be interesting strategy here from Jardier to really come in and repair that early damage. We'll keep an eye on him and see how his pit timer will work out. I think generally you're in the pit lane for about a minute 45 here because it's such a long pit lane.
Your pit lane.
We have to check that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he's in the front part of the pit lane too, because I'm watching him on my monitor here, and yeah, he's still driving down the pit lane, and these guys are almost coming up to turn 7.
It is a very long way down pit lane. It effectively is the F1 and the GT pit lane, and then the world's longest yellow brick road that leads you out of the pit lane, that has about as many corners as a karting track does to get you out of pit lane before you even get back to the racetrack. Joshua Lyson in chat's asking, do I have the flu? Well, no, I don't have the flu, but I have been feeling a little bit under the weather this week. I feel fine now. I just sound pretty horrible, so I do appreciate all of you at home bearing with me.
And we're just watching this pack here in the middle here, Jesse, as these guys are just going to be nose to tail, I think, until they keep pitting. Jardier is still stopped at his pit box, by the way, so we can see how long this pit lane and this pit timer really is here at Spa. Of course, all these guys will have to come down the pit lane at least once. Yes, Jesse.
He had damage. Would you fix the damage if it were you?
If it were me, I think it depends on how the car feels. And so it's very hard to say. That said, I'm going to tell you what Jardier decided, and it was to fix damage.
Ah, yes. Okay, so Jardier fixes his damage. I think that gives him the best shot. If he had maybe a top 10 car without it being fixed, now, yes, he took extra time on pit lane, longer than the 25 seconds he had to sit there for, but it gives him a fighting chance now, I feel.
That's entirely possible, right? So he was in the pit lane from in to out for 2 minutes and 6 seconds. He's going to cycle out in P29 at the tail end of the cars who have not pit yet. So that's about how much time he lost. Right now, for reference, he's coming in to Bruxelles, which is the long hairpin after the first chicane at the beginning of Sector 2. So that's how much time you actually lose here at Spa in the pit lane. But very, very curious to see how these guys do. But nose to tail and side by side now here, coming down the straight is going to be Millsdale Vassen and Wolfgruber. The 41 there has a great run coming into the combs. Is he able to cut the nose off of the Aston? He's not. Milton still. Oh, there's the touch.
Big
the touch. It looks like the 41 got a little wide and pushed the Aston right on the wall. Milton Vassen has to now back into the wall as he has got nowhere to go and he is stuck. Let's watch this from Steel Vassen's perspective. What actually happens here? We're going to see this. What happens, Jesse?
He just gets got right there on the not oh man, I just watching that again. Just got on the curb. And you have so much momentum. That corner is way more acute than you think it is, that left-hander. And normally, if you are on the curb, you kind of free flow back to the outside of the racetrack. It's not really what you want to do. You don't actually want to go out to that curb usually because it doesn't set you up for the right-hander to run down the hill. But nevertheless, probably had too much momentum, couldn't get the car wound up, ends up coming off the curb and collecting the Aston, I think, is what happened there. I think it's very clearly just a mistake.
Yeah, and it is a mistake that we've seen a lot coming through that chicane section there. It's difficult to kind of make your way through that side by side section, and unfortunately for the 41 and for Milton Vassen even more so, it did lead to contact, and of course we will see what the stewards decide there for that, as we are seeing. Finally, some of the stewarding penalties come out. Yeah, I see the 58's got a drive-through. I'm going to assume that's for that incident with Malinowski, Jesse.
Well, I'm going to very quickly read through these, shall I? No further action between the 18 and the 43. Racing incident between the 92 and the 51. Racing incident between the 72 and the 66. Drive-through penalty for car 58 for taking out the 993. Drive-through penalty for car 43. Moving under braking, taking out the 155. Racing incident between the 58 and the 39. 5-second penalty for car 155 for rejoining the track unsafely, causing contact with the 100.
Yeah, so there it is. Multiple points of contact there. Multiple penalties coming out from the stewards. So we are going to see these guys have to serve those penalties here within the next couple laps. And of course, Huell already in the box. Or literally in the pit lane, rather, making his penalty, as you can see with that P right next to the drive-through down at the bottom. Malinowski making his pit stop as well. And, of course, Milton Vassen, unsurprisingly, in the pit lane, likely going to see a very similar situation that we saw with Jardier there, coming in to repair that damage that he just took. And speaking of Jardier, here he is just kind of trying to make his way through the back of the field. He's got plenty of clean air. It might play in Jardier's favor with all of this clean air. Look at that track map out ahead of him, Jesse Lee. He is going to be able to put down some blazing laps in this now fixed BMW M4. And if he can get it and get these low 17s going, or even mid 17s with all these guys fighting nose to tail like they are, he could make up that time.
So, Mike, we often like to talk about what might have been, and that sort of thing around here. That was lap one, that contact between the 58 and the 993 that led both of those cars to be taken off the podium. Do we feel a drive-through was all that was necessary for the 58 in that case, considering it was lap one? I know often the stewards will give a harsher penalty for that. In this occasion, looks like they elected to give the standard penalty.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where, with the new stewarding rules and everything that we that we have started, right, that we are able to not necessarily judge harshly every single time that there's an issue on lap one, as we're seeing side by side here from Jardier and Malinowski as he launched himself on the pit lane. So there it is right there. Malinowski maybe had a little damage to repair, and we're going to see these guys fight nose to tail. There he is. He's flashing the lights. Yeah, he's happy about it because Jardier has the biggest grin on his face at the moment. Even if he's Malinowski, get out of my way, he's got the biggest grin on his face at the moment. And he wants by him because I think Jardier knows with a fixed car, he's probably a little bit quicker than that 993 Mercedes. But Malinowski might prove us wrong once he gets his tires warmed up. But we'll have to keep an eye on that as Jardier no longer has the free air that he had just a moment ago, Jesse.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. One other thing about Malinowski, that's the boss man he's racing against there at Yaz Heat. He's got to impress him, and what better way to impress somebody, your boss, than to show him, hey, I can drive away from you here, and I have those set of skills. I know that would surely impress me. So maybe a little bit of fighting for a job right there in 2022, as Malinowski, not as far as I know, still not a full member of the Yaz Heat family, and could be very interesting when it comes down to time to talk about having a more permanent sort of residence with that particular team. As the race does continue here, just 1 hour was the scheduled distance, and 20 minutes of that gone, and what a 20 minutes it was, as many accidents on the first lap, 2 drive-through penalties given, deemed 2 cars at fault for the majority of the incidents, and everything.
Oh yeah, so the penalty, Jesse, you'd asked me about that, and I forgot because Jardier and Malinowski started playing with each other. I think it's fair, if only because they had kind of already separated themselves at that point, from the perspective of it's not like it's a minute 20 lap like Laguna, like Brands, like that. It had been at 2 minutes into the race already, and while it was, look at Jardier and Malinowski, super aggressive into turn 7. But it looks like Jardier is going to have to cycle back behind. But yeah, I think it's fair, because I think that it wasn't necessarily anything to do with lap 1 that caused that incident. It just happened to be on lap 1 that, he overbroke himself, and it was the lightest of touches, right? It really wasn't that severe of a touch, but it was enough to throw him around, and I think that's why the stewards decided on a drive-through instead of a stop and go.
And I tell you something else, the stewards, of course, at the end of last year, you may have noticed that they gave some quite hefty penalties for lap 1 takeouts and that sort of thing. And that drive-through was more in line with what we would have saw last summer, where usually you'd get maybe a 15-second penalty for a takeout, but then you would get a drive-through if it was on the first lap, etc. That's more inclined. Also, it's up to stewards' discretion. And also, I think part of the reason it was just a drive-through was there was nobody else involved. They took each other out, and that was literally all there was to that. Nobody else got involved, so there wasn't a necessity for a harsher penalty. The damage had been done, drive-through given, and realistically, as the standard penalty, that is a bit more strong than it normally would be, but it still isn't quite a stop and go, which we did see given out at the end of 2021. I like it. I like the drive-through penalty in that case, simply because it was only a 2-car accident. Simon Keeble, by the way, is trying to get by Wolf Gruber, but is also now trying to defend against the 909 behind. This is the classic catch-22 of racing.
Mm-hmm. And he almost got past the 41 there, coming out through turn 10 and 11, but unfortunately had to cycle back behind. And of course, now, as you said, Jesse, now has to fight the 909 behind him as well. So he needs to be careful, because if he makes that slight mistake, say coming into the chicane off the edge of Blanchimont here, that he might lose that position to the 909 while trying to attack the 41 ahead. So we're fighting fights up and down the field here. This is just one of many active fights that are going on. Of course, we have P3, P4, P5 that are also nose to tail, and of course, as you see there on the left side of your screen, George Boothby in the pit lane, and I'm very curious to see what his actual pit delta is, Jesse, because if he probably doesn't have any damage. I don't think there's no reason for him to have any damage, so he shouldn't need to repair. I'm curious how much longer Jardier and Malinowski were in the pits in comparison to Boothby, and how much time that he's going to gain there. But he is pretty much one of the first leaders that came into the pit of his own volition, rather than just being stuck in traffic or having damage. And that will be very interesting little strategy for him, pitting a couple laps early. Currently on board with Oscar Huel, MSVR 58 McLaren chasing down Sizak in front of him in the 427 Ferrari. Looks like he's going to go for a bit of a move here in the chicane. We saw this happen earlier with Huel, and this is where he tapped Malinowski, but it will not happen again as he just easily slides past that 427 and picks up that position. Both cars have not made their pit stop yet, so that is for proper position out on the track as these guys are going to slide themselves past George Boothby. As Ryan's pointing out, Jesse, Malinowski is back in the pit lane. He does not have a penalty. Did you see, or do I need to go digging?
I did not see why Malinowski would be back down in the pit lane. I didn't get a report that there was contact either. So why Mike Jones goes and digs for that, we know that former race leader George Boothby has made his pit stop and is back out on the racetrack in his 100.
I'll give you one guess.
Believe, was it contact between Jardier and Malinowski?
No. Okay, I'll give you two guesses. There's two corners that he could have spun at. I'll give you a guess as to which one.
Radio.
Oh yeah, and he almost, God, what car number is that? He almost tagged the 229 on the way out. The 229 coming out of the pit lane, and Malinowski barely misses him. I mean, there could not have been inches between them. It was about as close as the virtual Le Mans qualifying.
Malinowski, who is in pit lane repairing, has posted in our chat, "I died."
Yep, he died. Wolf says he died. Yep, so that was a solo incident too. Nothing, no taps, no contact, no nothing. Looks like he bottomed out and pulled as he's calling it, a Boothby from the Logitech G Challenge at Spa. Little call out to Boothby there, who, by the way, we are on board with at the moment now, and you can see him still quite a way up the road from the rest of the field. So definitely going to be out in first, obviously. But yeah, Tortellini, he's calling out your teammate there, Torts.
That's pretty funny stuff indeed. Well, some other stuff from the pit lane. Racing incident between the 85 and the 993. A warning for car 427 for an unsafe rejoin and loss of control. Racing incident between the 18 and the 43. No further action for minor contact between the 229 and the 41. No further action for minor contact between the 147 and the 85. No further action for minor contact between the 993 and some other unnamed car. Warning for car 229 for misjudging brakes and tapping the 444. No further action, minor contact between the 444 and the 229. Those two have been going at it, apparently. No further action between the 909 and the 58 for minor contact. And they must have had a pretty decent lap number 1, Mike Jones, because they're working lap number 8 now. So it must not be too terribly diabolical out there for the stewards today.
No, and Ryan Gill desperately apparently wants me to mention that Boothby stuck in traffic where Caracas is not. Caracas did just enter the pit lane, by the way. He is on his in-road at the moment, so that is going to be just a couple laps worth of free air that he'll have. So there was 5 seconds between them, roughly, when they came into the pit lane. We have George Boothby's pit stop delta at 1 minute 54 seconds, and we'll see what Caracas is able to do in the pit lane. George Boothby, pretty damn good at making those pit stops, as we're seeing 3 more people dive into the pit lane here. Very unsurprisingly, Jesse, at that halfway mark, coming in to make their pits. Look at that, the top 6 and more. Now, everybody in the top 10 besides for Velde, I think Velde just wants to lead a lap. He just wants to get that on the board. I led a lap, guys.
Yeah, why not? I mean, if you have an opportunity to lead a lap, go ahead and do it. Daniel Valley here in the 85, the too bad to be in a team BMW. I feel, Daniel, you need to have some faith in yourself, man. I don't know what to say, but all things said, will be the leader of the race. Wasn't that time by, though. I hate to tell him that. He's going to have to go around again if he wants to actually lead a lap. Most everybody else in pit lane at the halfway point, as you said. But Mike, George Boothby pitting earlier than the halfway point. That's usually the opposite of what George Boothby does, where he pits at the last possible second. any reason that you can muster why he might have come in before everybody else, or not waited until late in this race to do it either?
Well, you're definitely not going to see him pit later in the race, right? Because of the fixed pit stop time, he was only going to be half tank of fuel. So I think that maybe he underfueled by just a little bit at the beginning and went for the undercut instead of going for the slight overcut like the rest of these guys do. By the way, Boothby did just pass the pit lane, and I do not see... Okay, yeah, there's Caracas. Caracas is coming out of the pit lane, so Boothby breaking into Lake Home at the moment, and Caracas still coming down the Camel Straight. So that gap has extended ever so slightly since the pit lane. So yeah, I think that's it, Jesse. I think that he may have just underfueled by, say, a lap or two in comparison, and decided to come in a little bit early and you know, get that little bit of less weight at the beginning of the race so he could dance out ahead when he knows he's going to have to come in and do that fixed pit stop.
Do you think Caracas's team name, Dark Shade V3, is in reference to his car? It is a dark shade of purple, mauve, whatever you would call that. Is this the third iteration of that car, I wonder?
I mean, it could be.
I'm just thinking out loud here.
Chase him down and ask him. Yeah, I was like, that was like a hard change. That took me for a loop for a second.
I'm sorry. I was looking at Caracas's car and I saw Dark Shade V3 and I'm like, he usually drives a car like that. Maybe he's naming, maybe his team name is his car name as well. George Boothby up to 4th place. 3 cars still yet to pit. Actually scratched that 2 cars as Daniel Valley in the 85 has come down pit lane. So is Max Payne. Adam Dubell in the 840 will be the Lone Ranger without making a pit stop thus far. Everybody else will
he wants to lead a lap.
Done so. Well, actually I say that, but the 814 hasn't either. But they're down in 19th place. But yeah, Adam Dubell will try to lead a lap around here today. And here is George Boothby coming up and around, I'm pretty sure. Yes, he's around the top of the circuit and will be taking the lead at some point relatively soon as Valentin Berrier tries his best to get around Van der Velde here in the 66. These two, I think, have pretty much been stuck to each other most of the race.
Most of the race, indeed. Berrier going to look to the inside, coming in through La Source, but not quite able to do it. And you can see him almost touch the bumper of the Williams Esports driver here, but not quite close enough to make that dive. Unfortunately, that Porsche, in comparison to Mercedes, even with the slipstream differences here, is probably just not going to be quick enough to overtake on any sort of straight, but he's getting a great run through Eau Rouge and Radion here. He is making all the way up to the bumper, and I'm very curious to see. The problem is, as soon as he dips out of the slipstream, here it is he able to continue on down the straight? And he's not. Look at him. He just stopped. He had such a speed difference there, and then as soon as he dipped out, he almost stopped going side by side, and now he's going to have to cut the chicane, and now he's under attack from the back as well. Look at this. The 16, there it is, Jesse Lee. What did we talk about so many times? You attack the car in front, the car behind is going to attack you if you make a mistake, and Berrier going off the track there briefly means that his Porsche rival there, mirrored liveries, by the way, for the Jardy Community Team drivers, if I'm not mistaken. I think the 16 is as well, and that's going to be Berrier losing a position off the attack, trying to dive too far on the outside to get past Tinko, and it cost him the position back to P9.
Well, Valentin Berrier will continue his fight with the 16 for the time being. Adam Dubell is in the pit lane, and that will basically complete the pit cycle of the race here just after the halfway point.
Ooh, look at this.
Trying to make a move himself.
Over.
Yes, indeed. Wajda trying to take his turn on Van der Velde here. It hasn't worked as well, but safe from being passed himself, at least for the time being. We talked about that. We talk about it every single race, really, about how if you're in a pack of cars, you try to make a move, it doesn't come off, you then become the one that everyone's trying to pass because you've slowed your momentum. Looking down the inside to back to the outside, back down to the inside is Wajda. He's going to be right there with the nose. Room given by Van der Velde here, and it's going to be just about enough for all three of them to get through. But close quarters racing, but excellent racing.
And he's going to look for it again outside of the source here, but is not able to get that one done. Here's the difference, I think, between Berrier and Wachna. I think Wachna has a better shot at getting Tinko down the straight here, down the Camel Straight, because as we saw earlier, his Porsche pretty quick in a straight line due to his setup, I would imagine, running a very low wing setting, and he might have a shot. If he can get a run off the top here, he cuts a Rouge just a little bit off the top of the hill of Radion. He's going to get deep in that slipstream here. He pulls out, and let's see if he can keep that speed, keep that momentum. It's almost the same as Berrier there, and he's not going to be able to do anything. So there it is, man. It's just the difference between the Porsche and the Mercedes. You just can't take it down the straight. Tinko knows that, and he goes defensive every single time down the Camel Straight. He's not going to let these Porsches have an inch down the straight. Berrier all over the back of Wachna as well still. He wants that position back. He's upset that he lost it. He wants to get up and be the top of this train, so he doesn't have to worry about getting attacked and defending at the same time. But in the end, it's going to be Wachna out in front for the moment of the two Porsches. And Tinko doing a damn good job defending here.
Well, talk about Wachna for a moment. The skill required to follow a car as closely as he is following Van der Velde here and to not make contact is incredibly impressive. Like, they are one accidental break or something away from a huge accident and a lot of fingers being pointed, but they're all holding it very well, and very aggressive is Wachna, but expertly defensive is Van der Velde. This is the stuff that gives you the fizz if you're a race broadcaster. You love to see stuff like this. It's mano a mano. It's one of the best tracks in the world. Two very different cars that have very different strengths, and they're using them to great effect here. Case and point. Look at Berrier. Berrier is absolutely not giving up either. Don't think Berrier is sitting there letting Wachna take Van der Velde. That is not what's happening. Berrier wants to get back in front of Wachna and then get in front of Van der Velde themselves, but it's not that simple.
Yeah, that is Martin Grady catching up to this pack as well, as Ryan's pointing out. You can see him just there in the background, a couple seconds back with these guys fighting. He is picking up that time. Martin Grady into P9. He has picked up an overall position for the race. However, the problem for Grady, Honzik only 3.8 seconds back and 20 minutes left on the race. He might find himself under attack here before he can catch up to the back of this pack and get himself in it. But that bright yellow 720 doing a damn good job. Also, looking back at the middle of the field as well, I've been watching the P14, 15, 16 battle. Multiple of the MSVR drivers out here having a bit of a scrap in the midfield as well. So this is not the only battle going on track, by the way. Like, there is all sorts of battles that are happening here. Sievert, Wolfgruber, little bit of a tap from Sievert there. Wolfgruber goes a little bit wide. They're tapping again. Look at them side by side, bouncing and banging off each other. The Aston Martin wants to go 3 wide. He can't do it, but now he's under attack from Milton Steele. Vassen gets the inside of Keeble, and he's going to have to back out there as the Honda and the McLaren side by side still all the way through, coming down through No Name, still side by side. There's a little bit of a touch again on the outside. No touch there. So close to a touch. They're bumping and banging each other, but there's the Honda. Did not get the run off, and that's going to be the Aston Martin up in front of him now. Keeble does have the nose advantage, and here's the BMW now as well. Zampiri joins the fight. This is now a 5-way battle going in through Sector 2. Honda losing all the momentum. He's on the outside. He probably will end up losing it here. Keeble is going to get the nose further and further out, and he slots back in. Milt still Vassen, though, Jesse Lee, not done. He wants the position as well. He wants to follow his teammate up through the field and cycle this Sievert Honda all the way to the back. Sievert losing all sorts of time. There it is again and again and again. You stick your nose under somebody, you make that slight mistake, you bump and bang a little bit, you lose so many positions. Out to Blanchmont, Miltsteel Vassen might look to to make a pass here in Blanchmont. He decided against it, and I don't think he's going to have the brakes coming into the chicane to make that move, but I don't think that's going to stop him from trying. He's going to look to the outside. He is on the brakes. Look at him. The Aston Martin so deep on the brakes, but it's just not enough. He runs a little wide. He's going to have to cut the chicane and now give away the position to the BMW as well. Otherwise, that could be time gained off track. And there it is. Slight mistake. You get attacked from behind again. We just saw that 3 times in one battle across one lap.
Well, I will say that I'm going to sound a bit like a broken record there. That was inches away from disaster, but well held on all accounts. What I am about to do, I'm telling you folks at home, I have never had to do in the history of RCI racing. I've never done it in my broadcasting career. I am going to take a drink of water and then attempt to explain to you what the stewards have thrown onto my desk. Give me one moment.
While Jesse's having his drink of water, an update on this battle really quick is that Tickle Vanderbilt has actually gapped these guys by about 1.5 seconds. Now the Porsche is still fighting, and you can see Martin Grady inching and inching closer and closer to the back. Honzik is still staying steady at about 4 seconds back, so Honzik just does not quite have the pace at the moment to get up to the back of these guys. But Grady doing a very good job inching closer and closer to the back of these Porsches, and I'm very curious to see if he can get himself into this fight. It would be amazing to see during race 1 here the potential for Martin Grady to make a P5 finish. Jesse Lee, over to you.
Well, first of all, before I get started, no further action for minor contact between the 229 and the 6.
And then there's one big incident. I can see the bold text from here.
What I was going to say, Jake Boswell has handed me a paper that says one
Usually
big incident.
Yeah,
I'm going to refer to this as the Boswell Report. I think is what I'm going to call this. This is now officially the Boswell Report. This is all the same incident. Stop and go 10 for car 840 for a double takeout of the 119 and the 211, causing significant damage to both cars. 5-second penalty for car 840, failure to hold brakes. 5-second penalty for car 199, failure to hold brakes. Drive-through penalty for car 6, failure to react to the incident in front of them, resulting in the takeout of car 51.
I'm going to interrupt you really quick, Jesse. Yeah, can we catch a replay of this, Ryan? I was just watching that. We'll get back to that in just a second. Here's a replay coming into the chicane. A little bit of an incident here with the Honda going deep, and then subsequently he gets a little bit of a tap. And the Honda goes around. So as they come into the corner, the BMW overshoots just a little bit. The Honda tries to make the cutback, but the Aston Martin is there. And unfortunate for them, that's going to be an interesting one for the stewards to look at. If they think that's fault Aston, maybe it's fault BMW because of the way that it was handled, or maybe it's even fault Honda and there's no further action. But that's going to mean that Sievert loses out of those positions, and also Steele Vasson and this BMW of Zampiri are going to lose a few seconds to the back. But I'm sorry, Jesse Lee. Do you want to try again?
No, you're quite all right. That was the end of it. That was the one big incident. That was on lap 1. They've deemed it turn 1 and 2. Yeah, I guess that would technically be turn 1 and 2. But that was the massive pileup that I had mentioned seeing between the 199 and the 840 at the opening lap. We didn't catch that live. I will tell you, I have had, and I don't know if Ryan Gill has this, but I have an image on my desk of the 211 car upside down on the Kimmel Straight is what has happened there, and that was lap 1. But the 211 very much upside down, skidding on its roof, cars carnage galore on the Kimmel Straight on lap 1. But rather besides that, that was all one big incident. After that, drive-through penalty for 85, taking out the 747 racing incident between the 444 and the 993. 5-second penalty for the 993 for making contact with the 444, racing incident between the 85 and the 909, racing incident between the 66 and the 72, warning for car 444 for causing the 229 to, yeah, essentially it's moving under braking, so warning for 444, drive-through penalty for car 229 for taking out the 444, racing incident between the 747 and the 85, drive-through penalty for car 41 for braking too late, taking out the 96, no further action between the 83 and the 147. No further action between the 747 and the 85. The 85 released the brakes and taps the rear of the 747. Whew, I need a lozenge. Yeah,
you need a lozenge and another drink of water, I think, Jesse Lee. But that was, yeah, that's there's been a lot of contacts here, and there have been a lot of penalties that go out.
I
The
take
Wolf
back
Gruber
my
one
previous comment of the race being fairly clean. I take that back.
Yeah, no, yeah. We haven't caught much of it on stream, unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it. But what has been caught are the Porsches. Martin Grady now on the back of watching it here in the 16, and Barrier out in front. The Jardier community team members are going to have someone else breathing down their neck and joining this fray here. In the number 18, McLaren 720S is the pleb machine for the king of the plebs, Martin Grady. He has caught these guys. Jardier, again, has not got the pace to get up to the back. He is still 4 seconds behind Martin Grady. That said, now that Martin Grady is up to the back of these Porsches, Jardier is probably going to start reeling them in just a little bit, and especially since Wolf Gruber behind him, he doesn't have to worry about him at all now with that drive-through penalty. But Martin Grady might be the story of the end of the race here, Jesse Lee. You love to see it. I don't think he's going to be able to catch up to Vanderbilt, whether he gets past these guys or not yet, with only 13 minutes to go. Martin Grady is he's on for a P7 potentially.
He could very well get there, and what a result in race number 1 for Grady that would be. George Boothby cruising to what looks like a sure win. We've said that before, and it's all gone a bit wrong. We caught last season, Mike, we caught George Boothby with a 30-second lead. He lost it, I think it was on the penultimate or the final lap around the Nürburgring. He lost half of his lead. He had a 30-second lead. He was down to like 13 seconds at the line. We thought he was playing around. Come to find out, nope, he just lost it on the final lap. And had he not had a massive lead, it could have ended in tears. I don't think that's going to happen today. But Boothby with a very nice lead up front. Caracas should be proud of his race as well. Survived the early melee and has been absolutely solid in second place. What about Lateo in the 27 BMW as well? A fantastic third could be in his future as well. And that will do a world of good for their championship standings. But Boothby, it has been a nigh-on perfect day.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, Boothby did get a little lucky at the start of the race, right? He was not involved in any incidents, but, you know, that Jardier and Malinowski had and everything like that. So it very well potentially could be that if the Aussie drivers were up there and those incidents didn't happen coming through the columns on lap 1, that Boothby may have had a bit more of a fight. But not today, it would seem. And that's really what it is. Racing. It doesn't matter how fast you are. If you keep it clean, you can get up to the top regardless. And of course, Boothby is also fast. This is what I was just going to talk about. I've been watching this battle for a couple laps now between Scarmato and Verstappen back here for P17. The BMW has just kind of been following Verstappen around. Not really any dodges or dives quite yet for him. Both of them, of course, have done their pit stops, and this BMW is just waiting for that mistake from Verstappen potentially to make his move. But you can really kind of see these guys scrapping. More battles going on through the through the race as well. Back in P25, P26, these guys also nose tail back there in the back. That's Sizak and Conciao. I don't know how to pronounce that one. I apologize. Maybe we'll get that one after the race. As well as, you know, of course, the Simon Keeble battle going on, but Wolf Gruber has a drive-through in front of him, so he will not have a long-term battle. I think Wolf Gruber has to come in this lap and serve that drive-through, or it will be upgraded to a disqualification due to not serving your penalty. So, yeah, here it is, too. We're going to go into the chicane, and I would not be surprised to see Wolf Gruber dive into the pit lane, and yeah, there he goes. So Wolf Gruber going to cycle himself back. He's got about a minute 20 through the pit lane. It's a long pit lane. You don't want to get a drive through here.
You want to talk about compounding issues, getting a drive-through penalty or getting a bigger penalty for serving your penalty is very frustrating. We've seen a lot of drivers over the past couple of years park it after that in sheer frustration. And Sizek here in 26th place, the 427 Forza Italia.pl team, just sort of circling around here. Has not had the greatest day, I think we could all possibly agree, but has the opportunity here in the final 10 minutes to gain at least one position here from the 229 I don't think they could get to the 155 of Alexander in front. So this might
got
be the
that 5-second
battle for
penalty, though.
Sizek. See, now you make a good point there, Mike. I didn't even notice.
And they
that
are
Alexander
almost
had that
exactly
penalty.
5 seconds behind as well, is the thing.
So Verde going around was that the triple four? It was, and I think the triple four just lost it. Ostrich just
Yeah.
lost it by himself.
Let me tell you what happened here, Jesse Lee. He's driving the McLaren, and he touched the brakes in the middle of the corner.
Yes. You can't do
Why? Because I have done that way too many times. Yeah, he went a little deep. You can see. I mean, obviously not from this camera, but you can see just before the camera switched over that he went just that touch deep, and he needed to tap the brakes just ever so slightly as he's coming through the corner. And every single time that will throw that 720 for a loop, and that's exactly what happened. Guarantee it.
Unfortunate for Ostrich there, and a little bit of a spin there. He will have given up that position to Severd. I don't think Verstappen would have caught the triple four, so I think they're safe. But the damage to the tires will have been done nonetheless. But alas, 8 minutes left to survive. And for some of the teams today, Mike, I feel like that's the best term. For none of the top 10, I don't think, has really had to survive. I think the only one in the top 10 that's had to even remotely survive is Jardier, who's looking like he's going to finish inside the top 10 despite his troubles today, his early pit stop. And I think the jury is still out on whether it was better to fix the damage. He was in 6th and 7th place without fixing it, and he's been stuck in 10th ever since. So don't really know if it was a win or a lose maneuver.
12 seconds he lost in the pit lane, for reference. I have to go back and look at his lap times and see what the difference is, because 12 seconds in the pit lane, that's a lot. And if you're losing, second and a half a lap, that could have been worth it for him, especially since he came out in free air. That's the other thing as well, is he came out in free air and had all that opportunity to gain a lot of time on that, as we're seeing Giacomelli potentially look down to the inside of Max Payne, but not quite able to get that move done for the moment. Not quite enough on the brakes.
This is interesting.
There's a Nissan in split one, Jesse.
Yeah, there sure is. Well, that's Max Payne. He runs the Nissan. He's I call him a fan favorite. He's a favorite of mine because he runs the GTR, and usually to great effect.
And everything.
Top 20 for the moment. Guy Camelli here would like to take that away from him, and so would Hool, for that matter, who's lurking just behind the both of them. And it's very interesting that these three are all together here at the end of the race, because I feel like most of these were together earlier, but in a different running order, I'm pretty sure, unless I'm very much mistaken.
I'd have to go back and check on that, as I'm not positive on that one either, Jesse. The order for the moment, though, not changing between these guys, as we're going to swap back to Martin Grady, who is currently just stuck to the back of the number 16, and he wants that position. 16 having to go slightly defensive and aggressive here. Ooh, there's the tap there. Grady got tapped there as well. I was waiting for it. I knew that was going to happen with those Porsches at some point, and it looks like that Barry and Wachna are going to be the victims of that touch at this time. You know that they're on voice as well. This is the Jardia community teammates, and you can see he tries to make that cut. They're on voice with each other, and I'm sure that they are cussing each other out so much right now. It is one of them, no, you broke too early, no, you broke too late, no, you did that, and no, you did that, and they're having a good time still. But Martin Grady celebrating, I'm sure.
Well, Martin Grady won't be too happy that he had to hit the car. And I will tell you from personal experience, especially in this particular car, the McLaren, it's always a crapshoot on what you get after a frontal contact like that. Is it going to affect the steering or the downforce in any way? Especially going through Eau Rouge and Raidillon, that's a bit of a gamble. And you might not be flat through there the first time after you have contact, because you're not quite sure how the car is going to react. Yeah, but he's been through there first now, so he has a little bit of information on what he could expect. But we go back here, Max Payne,
a little bit deep on the brakes,
trying to continue to go around him. I think he's just about got it done. Giacomelli down the inside, Payne on the outside. I don't think he's going to be able to hold on to it, and in fact, he doesn't. Doesn't give Hool any scraps though. Just losing the one position.
Yeah, Max Payne a little bit deep on the brakes going into the chicane, and as you do that, the Aston Martin slid on past him nice and easy. However, the question being here, the Nissan very quick down the straight, but it looks like he's not going to get the run. Oh, yeah, Huel forced to go very off track there to avoid Max. Max had such a bad run going up that hill that Huel had nowhere to go, and that's the problem with that hill right there, Jesse. Huel didn't have anything to do. He's lucky he missed the wall, which is another reason they're redesigning, Arouge and Radeon, in the real life track at the moment. Is that if he hadn't have dodged out there and instead tapped the brakes, he would have flown himself into the wall. And so there it is right there. Max Payne, 2 mistakes within about a minute of each other, loses 2 positions. I was gonna say that that Nissan was fast down the straight and he was gonna be able to catch the Aston, but it doesn't seem like it. However, looking further up the field again, as we are back to Sizak here in this battle with the 229. Looking back up the field a little bit, especially with that minor contact that just happened, Jardier is within 2 of Martin Grady, and Martin has a little bit of damage.
He sure does. Just going back to the Max Payne Huel thing, I don't think Huel's going to be able to keep that position.
Drive through for skill that.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
That was sorry, Jesse. We had P12 get a drive through Milt Vass, and it looks like he took out the 83 earlier, and that caused a drive through. That was when he took out Siebert. That was the result of that incident.
Yeah, he sure did. But going back to Huel and Max Payne, it doesn't matter what Max Payne does. Huel can't go off the track and gain a position like that. So Huel took that spot, didn't give it back. I'm not sure that that's going to stand. I'm pretty sure in post-race that will be reversed again.
Potentially. He can't go off track and gain a position, but at the same time, he was also forced off track by Payne. So it's difficult, especially through Arouge and Radeon, that it might be expected behavior to do that, I think. So it could very well be something that is not settled in stewarding and is just settled out on the track, I think.
Very interesting take indeed. The final minute and a half of race 1. Mike, I think I speak for the both of us when I say that this race has absolutely lived up to the hype. Welcome back, everybody, to 2022 RCI 2.0, as it was coined. And boy, it's sort of lived up to the hype today. These drivers came very prepared, and they came to absolutely get after it for race number 1. We've seen that. We've seen cars. Well, we haven't seen them, but I've seen cars upside down today. And we've seen some excellent racing, some new strategy having to be played out with the brand new pitting requirements here. And the 229 is stopped at the top of the hill, but has gotten going. I point that out because that's in front of the leader just a little bit. But what can you say about George Boothby? A lot of new things this year. This is not new. George Boothby out in front of a GT3 field.
Yeah, and again, we said this before the race, or I said this before the race. Ooh, yeah, there's the BMW off right in front of him again. So that BMW is struggling a lot. He's got massive damages at 229. I think he's just going to try and limp around and at least get the race finished for more than anything. And no, actually, he just returned to pit lane. So that's heartbreaking. You go an hour and then have to RTP on the last lap and get himself towed. Yep. So the 229 gonna have to retire. That drops him all the way down to I don't know where that's gonna drop him down to. I think P28, if I'm not mistaken, out of 30 left on the field. But yeah, George Boothby, again, not something new, not a new car, not a new man up at the top, and not a new man driving the fastest lap of the race. His best lap, a 16.8. Looking up and down the leaderboard, by the way, the next one is in the 17s. So he was 3.5 tenths faster on his fastest lap than anybody else out on the track. And he had one of the fastest pit stops of anybody else out on the track. And I'm going to say this again, Jesse Lee. George Boothby, this year, I think this is going to be the year of Boothby if he wants it to be. He is going to drive in every single series. And I think that he will fight for the victory in every single one of them, no matter what the field is. This man right here, coming through the final chicane on the last lap of the opening round of the RCI GT3 Championship, he's going to take the victory. The fastest man in ACC, I think, at the moment is right here, George Boothby, taking the victory at 5:23 p.m. local sim time. Caracas, amazing run by him. 7.6 seconds back off of Boothby in the end. And Lateo in his BMW, 5.6 seconds back. Foch, a great race by him, by the way. Held that P4 with Deanna behind. That never changed the entire race. Foch and Deanna were pretty much there the entire time. Martin Grady and Tinko Vandervelde, 6th and 7th. And Vandervelde, again, he was just Vandervelde was the proprietor of good luck. He stayed himself out of trouble and just held position the entire time. Martin Grady, of course, promoted above the two Porsches due to the instant they had themselves in the chicane. And Jardier, even after the damage on lap 1, having to come in, stay an extra 12 seconds in the pit lane, is going to come home P8 with the Porsches and his community Porsches of Barry and Wachna out behind him. Simon Keeble, the leading MSVR driver, going to finish in P11. MSVR did not have the best race today, Jesse. All of them just had issues throughout. And then, of course, Milton Steele Vasson having that drive-through at the end, taking out the 83 due to that incident with Sievert, was heartbreaking for him. Savalainen not able going to get this position from the Audi out in front, as they're going to cross the line for P17 and 18.
Savalainen, though, I think started somewhere around 30th place, so any sort of positions gained was a net for them up to 18th at the end. But my biggest takeaway from the day, other than this man, George Boothby, in the wall, having fun, enjoying his day. This is the other story for me. Samir Foch came up from the bottom half of the top 10. I didn't think they were going to hold on to a top 5 spot today. Shows how much I know, and while I'm in this booth and not in the cockpit of that car, Samir Foch doing a great job. 4th place, gained 5 spots, didn't give it up. And also Martin Grady, a similar story, gaining a bunch of spots. And talked about Jardier. I was curious whether or not fixing the damage was important. I don't think it mattered too much in the end. I just don't think that car had quite what it took today.
Well, I've summoned the king of the plebs, and he has heard the call and arrived. Martin Grady, we talked a lot about you in the past hour. Great freaking race, dude.
Oh, thank you. That was well, it's my first time in the McLaren, so I'm sort of learning it. And yeah, as everyone saw, my setup is pretty weird because I have understeer everywhere and then I oversteer crazy. But yeah, I can't believe P10, top 10 was what I was going for. So P7 is yeah, it's like a win. So happy days.
Yeah, so I got to ask the question, because you were in P9 and you caught the two Porsches. Are you disappointed they took themselves out? Or are you just like, oh, I'll take the positions, let's go? What was the reaction there?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't mind a nice race, but I sort of could. I don't know if they're teammates or not. I couldn't work it out. They're in the same colours, so I was like, I think they're helping each other out here a little bit. But I could tell the Porsche, the back one. I'm not even going to try and butcher their name because. But literally, I could tell that they were struggling a little bit. So when I was getting to the bus stop, I was catching the brakes quite a lot. So I was like, okay, I'll just stick on the outside. And I noticed they tried to stay level with me, and I was like, that's too deep. And then when they hit barrier, I was like, oh, I can't go anywhere now. I'm on the outside, so I'll just have to go round the outside and past them.
So real quick before I step in on that, Grandpa Boothby out of the chat. Nice start for the growing Boothby clan. I love that. Grandpa Boothby, Dr. Glock, of course, in the chat, guys. Give him a big shout out. That is George's dad. Thanks for him for joining us. So yeah, Tidge, when you had to go around the outside there and then got knocked as well. Jesse especially was concerned because we both drive the McLaren as kind of like the main car that we will generally drive when we do, not that we drive often, and it's so sensitive to damage at times. Jesse was talking a lot about how if there had been a little bit more damage to that thing, Jardier may have caught you, and he was getting there a little bit, but it's no mean feat to say that you were pacing Jardier even with a slightly damaged car.
Yeah, well, I keep saying when I'm racing that it'd be nice to race Jardier, but at the moment we're Jardier's either just ahead or in this case he was just behind. But yeah, he's an awesome driver, so it was nice to actually not necessarily lose time because in the second stint especially, I noticed it dropped a little bit and then it stayed around 4 seconds for a while, and I was like, okay, we've got some pace at least, and we did have damage the entire race as well, so yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that.
Yeah, well, you know, we talked about this before the race, obviously, about how, you know, your community voted for your new car, which I know you had the choice. I believe it was the Ferrari, the McLaren, and the Mercedes or something like that? What were your 3 choices they voted for?
So it's any car that's not in the other game I play. So it's literally the Aston Martin V8 Vantage, the BMW M4, the Ferrari 488, and the McLaren.
Gotcha. Okay, so it was basically any car that's not in GT Sport. You wanted to just make sure you drive something that's not that.
Yeah,
and they did decide on the McLaren. I mean, other than today, you looking pretty strong in it. I mean, what was your thoughts? I mean, do you think that you're given a a little bit more setup work that you could like this as much as the Bentley? You think you maybe like it more, or how are we looking?
I like it a bit more now. When I first got in it, I hated it. It was understeery like crazy. But I'm not a setup person. I'm really, really, really rubbish at setup. So at the moment, I'm just Googling setups, going on YouTube, etc. And yeah, don't tell George this, but I actually went on one of his...
Googling setups, Mike Jones.
Stealing from George's stream?
I did go on George's VOD of he did the qualifier for RCI, and he also did a bit of Spa there. So I was like, ooh, what did he do at Spa? I did feel some power and camber settings, let's put it that way.
Right. Ryan says in the background, the man has no shame. But you know what? Same, buddy, because you know what you do? Yeah. You take it where you can, you take those people who are just insanely quick like Boothby and is very comfortable in the 720, take their settings, man, absolutely every day of the week. And I'm sure, I think Boothby's nice enough as well that if you just shot him a message, he'd just probably shoot you a setup, like if we're being honest. Won't he, Grandpa Boothby?
Wow. Well,
I'm doing the call out now.
It's always an honor and a privilege to get to see you race. It's just your meteoric rise in ACC to the point now where you're not only confident in the pro class, but you're getting top 10s, you're racing against top talent. I mean, it looks like the sky's the limit for Tidge now. I mean, is there anything you can't do?
Fuel calculations, apparently, because if you didn't know in that race, I was very, very, very close to running out in that first stint.
Oh,
well,
close.
Yeah, now that you've got that one under your belt, hopefully next race, next week, we won't have that problem. Though I do know that that's a consistent problem with you. So you're always getting a little too fine, aren't you?
Yeah, it was 0.1 when I got to my pit box.
Ooh,
oh my God.
That is close. Well, yeah, very close. Well, Martin, unless you got anything final there, Jesse Lee.
I'm just shaking my head. I'm just shaking.
Well, Martin, it's been a pleasure, man. I wanted to pull you on because I know you had the new car, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the car change and everything, and also just congratulate you on the finish, man. Just a fantastic drive today. I think we're gonna see you probably get a couple top 5s this season, if I'm not mistaken. I would not be surprised to see you up there, and hey, maybe we'll see a podium or maybe a win like last year. Up near one of these races. It's just going to be about punting Boothby off, I think, and making sure he's not up at the top. I said nothing. The stewards heard nothing.
That's permission, by the way.
Yeah, Tidge, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Well, I need to talk to the rest of you about the upcoming schedule. Well, Night Owl does start tomorrow night. That will not be streamed because most of the RCI crew is away on another assignment. But on Monday, the Euromasters 2 Championship starts. That being brought to you by the Ryan and Ryan Show. Stewie in the box for that. And of course, Mike Jones, Stewie, and myself will be back with you on next Friday for the continuation of the Friday GT3 Championship. Mike Jones, the championship's getting started. Everything ramping up here, and what an excellent way to start it here today.
Excellent way to start it, and I can't wait to get back out for this championship next week again. And as you said, of course, all the other championships starting up here as well. And what will be soon, the most that I'm looking forward to, 10 Hours in Nürburgring, second weekend of February. We'll be live at the Super Bowl the first weekend of February for the start of our World Tour. And it is shaping up to be an absolutely massive field for our World Tour this year. We've got almost 200 teams signed up at the moment. And that is just insane. We're going to have 4 splits of that, potentially up to about 45 to 48 drivers, depending on how many teams actually qualify. And live stewarding for every single one of them. And of course, the top split being broadcast right here on RCI TV all race long and all season long, culminating in the 24-hour Spa at this track right here out in Belgium. Well, been a fantastic race. Boothby, of course, out here dominating the field. Yas Heat not having the best day overall, though. Jardier and Malinowski both having issues. Jardier climbed his way back up to P8, but George Boothby in with the win. And Martin Grady, that we just interviewed, P7. Great finish by him. Big thank you to, of course, all of the people who help us out here, the massive stewarding team behind the scenes, Jesse Lee, Ryan Gill, helping us out in the broadcast, and of course, race department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and Sim Racing GP for helping us run all of our servers and do all these races for you guys. Check them out. Links in the description, and get yourself some coaching from Driver 61. Maybe you can be up in the top split next season. Have a great weekend, everyone.